NRC headquarters. We are about to start a public call today. It's a Category 1 call. We do have members of the public, I believe, that may be on the line. And after the business portion of the meeting, the members of the public will be welcome to join ask the NRC any questions you may have. At that time, Dominion and their representatives are free to drop off the line. We'll go ahead with introductions on our end, and then those on the phone, starting with Dominion and their representatives. And then any members of the public, please identify yourselves. And after that, I will go ahead and start today's meeting. I'm Michael Udy, Project Manager for the North Anna COL application.
This is the Thermal Park, NRC. Jim Shea, Project Manager.
Mute off.
Structural branch. George Warren, Structural Engineer.
James Su, Branch Chief for Structural Engineering Branch.
Joe Braverman, are you on the line? Oh, he's calling someone. Maybe he's on mute.
He says he was on talk. We just talked to him.
We just talked to Mr. Braverman. He said he was on the line.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I am on the line. The mute button was on.
I could tell you.
We're having problems with buttons today. No problem. Thanks, Joe. Okay, Gina, you and your members? We have Ronaldo Jenkins just entered the call.
All right, good afternoon, Mike. So I will send you a list, but John Waddell and Gina Borsch are here at Dominion, and then we also have members from GEH, Skip Schumett, Tanya Kirby, Ruben Todorovsky, Lee Doherty, Patricia Campbell, Gary Ellert, and I think Donnie is on too, is that right? Yes. I'll get you the full names. Uh-oh. Did we lose someone? And then Pete Galliard from Florazon, Tom Hicks from Excel Services on, and Doug, did you join?
Yes, Gina. And Doug Kemp.
Doug Kemp from Bechtel. I think.
Yeah, Gina, Jaspal is here.
Oh, great. Thanks, Jaspal. So Jaspal Saini from Bechtel is with us, too. Okay. That's it for us, Mike.
Okay, thank you, Gina. Are there any members of the public on the line? Hello, David.
Barbara Moore Scruggs from VDEM.
Hello, Barbara.
Mute on.
Erica Gray, Richmond, Virginia.
Hello, Erica.
Hi.
Okay, so is that all for the members of the public? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and kick off the meeting with Dominion. Gina, if you don't mind, I'll just go ahead and preface the meeting with the agenda items, and then you can go right into it.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got 4 items. We had given you a revised seismic action tracking list earlier this week, and as a highlight, I just wanted to note that there are 35 items in total, and they've now been whittled down to 11 items left that aren't either closed or confirmatory, so I think that's good progress. So we can discuss any feedback you have on that list. The second item, we had given you some draft FSAR Rev 9 comments a couple weeks ago. You had given us a presentation that I have sent to everybody that you're going to walk us through your reply to those comments. And if there's any, there may be some audit report discussion items. Some of the reports that we've been looking at, we have some questions on. Just want to caution, if we're going to go into anything proprietary, we're going to need to set up an additional call. The Manus will go through those items. And then if there's any miscellaneous items to discuss, possibly the next audit too, or anything else going on with the review, we'll do that at that time. So, Gina, I'll turn it over to you if you don't have any questions or changes to that agenda.
No, that's excellent, Mike. All right, so if hopefully everyone who needs the slides has them. I was just going to go through this. And Joe, do I understand that you were kind of the lead on these questions or comments that you had? Is that right?
Yeah, I was a contributor, but, you know, it includes input from others, I would say.
Okay. All right. Well, all right, so for the first 3 items, A, B, and C, I'll cover those, and then I'm going to turn your question on what's labeled item B over to Gary Ellert from GEH, because that's a much more technical discussion. So if we just start on slide 2 with question A, you all identified the fact that FSAR section 381 doesn't have an apt DEP 3.7-1 identifier in the left margin. You said, this departure relates to the North Anna 3 site-specific ground response spectra for the seismic structural loads and the flow response spectra. And that is correct. And just a little background or explanation. So specifically for this comment, what we're saying is the information in the DCD section 381 doesn't include any kind of information that requires us to depart from it. And so that's why there isn't a left margin annotation specifically next to section 381 in our FSAR. So, and the only time we need to put that left margin annotation there, Joe, and for the staff, is when we specifically have to change the wording that is in that corresponding section of the DCD. And for 381, we didn't have to. It all still applies as it's written in DCD Rev 10. So no changes are required for 381 for this comment A.
I guess some observations on our part. There was, for example, one change that comes to mind about how you've done your thermal analyses. I believe in the DCD it was for the accident thermal. It was based on 3D nonlinear analysis, and in North Anna situation, you're not using the 3D nonlinear. You're using the thermal analysis that comes out of the SSDP computer code. But that's just one aspect. Another reason for this question is in the other SRP sections, you do have a statement that reads, that includes this departure, and it states that Unit 3 site-specific evaluations for RBFB, CB, and FWSC are described in sections 3G7 through 3G10. So that same situation would apply to 381 as you've placed in the other section. Another reason is, we'll get to it in a later slide, but I think you acknowledge that if the DCD refers to appendix in 3G, then you agreed it would be useful and appropriate to put this departure. So I was looking at FSAR, I was looking at the DCD 381, and in numerous locations it does refer to Appendix 3G. So these are some of the reasons. Oh, and then another important one is, 3.8 doesn't work in isolation. 3.8 is a summary with a lot of the details in the Appendix 3G. So I think it'd be important for for the FSAR and those who are going to read and try to understand it, that there's a connection between the text in 3.8 and Appendix 3G. There's a connection because there's a lot of departures in 3G. So those are the main reasons.
I understand. Yeah, I certainly agree with you, Joe. There is a strong connection between 3.8 and 3.81 and 3G. It's just that the way we structured the content of the FSAR right now is that the definition of a departure does not appear. We don't have any content in 3.81 that meets the definition of a departure. So, for example, if you're looking at 3.81, and we do refer to 3G a lot throughout 3.81. So, for example, it's in section 3.811, all right, when they're talking about the concrete containment in the DCD, it says the containment is shown in the summary report contained in section 3G1. And that's still true for North Anna. That's what's shown in 3G1 still applies to the north and a site-specific containment. We don't need to change anything there. That is an adequate reference. But when you start talking about the summary reports, as we'll get to in item C, I agree. It would be appropriate to reference not just the 3G1 through 3G6 sections, but also 7 through 10 where they're appropriate. But that's not the case for anything that I could find in 381. When you look at the references to 3G, they are all still correct for the FSAR.
Yeah, but as I mentioned before, I gave a number of examples. One, I believe you talk about the nonlinear thermal analysis in 3G1, and I believe you're deviating from that. Okay, so that's one example.
Well, and yes, and that's another question I think that we got this week, right, Joe?
Well, that's a separate issue completely. I think that one deals with what's the technical basis for that. Here, I'm not talking about the technical basis. Here, I'm trying to suggest that there should be a consistent wording in the FSAR across the sections. So if most of them have the statement, I'll read it again, like in 384, it states Unit 3, site-specific evaluations for RB, FB, CB, and FWSC are described in 3G7 through 3G10. Why wouldn't you put that same kind of statement in the other sections?
Joe, let me add also one thing. Gina, if you go to DCD section 38-8, which is the page, 38-8, the DCD talks about how the thermal loads are calculated or used in the analysis. Now, if you go to FSAR 3G 7.5.2, which is page 3-576, you will see there are little differences. So, in view of that, actually, I felt that departure also applies to 3.8.1.
If that is correct, if we are deviating from the methodology that was used in the DCD, then yeah, I agree, it should be a departure.
But anyway, take a look, all those pages and see whether they are consistent.
I'd like them to be certain that.
Yeah, we'll look at that, but
they should do it. Don't leave one. Let
Yeah, okay.
If you feel the need, if it would help you with your review for us to add that statement that's in 384 to each of the 3.8 sections at the beginning, we can do that. If that would help you with your review.
Yes, I think that's the right thing to do, I think.
Okay, so at the beginning of...
Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Somebody reading it now, looking at 381, for example, thinks, oh, great, there's no departures at all. But when you look at 3G, you see there are departures. So that could be misleading. That's why I think it'd be useful. I don't see what harm it is to...
No, it doesn't. Yeah,
what harm is it to point out that, not just for RB, FB, CB, and FWSC, but what harm is it also to say for the containment, the site-specific evaluations are in 3G? What harm is it? Yeah.
Okay.
No, you're right.
There's no harm. There's no harm. Yeah, I think Gina has agreed to change and include that in 381.
Okay, so you want us to add similar wording in front of 381, right? At the beginning of 381, is that right, Joe?
Yeah, and check the others. In a later slide, I think you even indicated you're going to go back and review all of the DCD sections, and wherever Appendix 3G is referenced, you'd also put in a similar statement. So to summarize, I think 381 through 385 should all refer to site-specific evaluations, which are described in sections 3G, I believe it's 7 through 10, to make a connection.
Okay, and so then for your item B, is that essentially what you're asking again? Because this is a little more specific, but it's...
No, this is a little different, because now I see you're introducing the technical reports, which provide the evaluation for the site-specific evaluations. So I'm asking, And I don't care where it is, but shouldn't the other technical reports, not just for the PCCS, like, reactor building, fuel building, FWSC, and containment, are they identified, why aren't they identified in 3.8? And if they're buried in Appendix 3G, that's fine too. I just think you should be, again, consistent with your structures, not just in some cases reference a technical report for details, and in other cases you don't.
Well, the reason that, did you read our explanation, our response?
Yes, if you want, we can go over that. You mentioned in the response that the reason you have it there, that it's necessary to, quote, modify the information regarding the site-specific finite element analysis and add the site-specific report to the references.
Right.
Now, my understanding is you did not modify the site-specific finite element analysis for the PCCS. Perhaps somebody there can answer that. And if you did not modify it, I mean, that's not really a reason then you put it in, right?
Pardon me?
Oh.
I lost you there.
Okay. I think the response indicates the reason you put this in as a departure in 382 is because, I'm reading your words, is because you modified the information regarding the site-specific finite element analysis. Reading your technical report on PCCS, I don't think you modified the site-specific finite element analysis. You follow? You did not modify it.
What we did,
Go ahead, Patricia, if you want.
okay, what we did, Joe, is we modified the information in that section to refer to the supplement that provides the site-specific seismic evaluation of the PCCS condenser. It modifies the report that's referenced for the DCD that includes the DCD standard design evaluation for seismic of the PCCS condensers, which is to the CSDRS, which still applies to North Anna. And then this other one, which you saw during Audit 1 and which has been submitted, provides the seismic portion of that report, but it uses the North Anna seismic load. So it does supplement that reference.
But I think model is the same.
Excuse me, this is Skip. Just make sure that everyone understands that the structural reports were not incorporated by reference in the DCD, while this particular PCCS report was incorporated by reference in the DCD, which is a subtlety I want to make sure everybody understands.
Okay. Well, let me ask then the generic question to everybody there. Is there a need, or would it be useful, or is it important to reference the key design reports for the structures somewhere?
We are following the approach that was used for the DCD, and it did not reference those reports.
But at that time, they didn't have the need for site-specific, analysis and design reports. Now you did that additional evaluation, and you, I guess, summarized information from that. So I'm just asking everybody, and I guess particularly the NRC, should these technical reports be referenced in the DCD somewhere or not?
I mean, not DCD, but the...
I mean, the FSAR.
Yeah. I mean, my personal opinion is if the technical report, provide the analysis that affect the design, that should be referenced, right? If the analysis, concluded the standard design is not going to be affected by that specific, I'm not for sure you need to include that, right? I mean, if it impacts design, obviously you make design changes, so then you have to include the technical report to provide supporting information. That's just my...
Well, I mean, what we are talking here, the DCD did not specifically mention any design report. Is that true? Not necessarily this one, but was there any reference to design reports in the DCD?
No.
Structural area?
In 3G there were.
No, not the report numbers.
Not this
These reports are summarized and placed in 3G, similar to what we're doing in the FSAR.
And they were audited They were not referenced in the DCD.
So the approach North End Network is consistent with the DCD approach.
Yeah, and only this one was
you can't.
referenced to.
Because if it's consistent with the DCD approach, this should be acceptable. Right?
Yeah, I mean, DCD did not specifically address, but some information from those reports should be in the FSAR anyway. Because FSAR.
They are.
Yeah, they
We
are.
transferred the information to match up to what we did in the DCD. We transferred that information from the reports into the FSAR, into 3G 7 through 10.
As long as they include all the...
Now, RAI responses have addressed that, right? RAI responses reference these reports, right?
Remember, our responses are not part of the design basis.
No, I know.
You have to rely on the information, including F-stop, right?
No, of course.
Yeah, so if it's part of the design... no. Okay, got it. Okay, yeah. But I think as long as you use the DCD approach, provide the pertinent information that should be acceptable.
So Jim, so there is or is not a need when the design changes, do they need to reference at least those reports, or it's not necessary?
It should be in the FSAR, those design changes.
Design changes should be...
No, not the design changes, the technical report as a reference that led to those design changes.
RAIs are the...
Well, they follow the same approach as the DCD, right?
DCD did not also have that, right? They described
unless we identify the deviate from DCD approach, and then we may ask them to ask the problem.
Yeah, if DCD did not have it, I would be inclined.
Right. Yeah.
Really not. As long as the RAI responses has a reference to these reports.
And the design report being reviewed during the audit, right?
Yes. So of course.
Okay. So only the technical report has a deviation. Does it need to be maybe referenced?
Exactly, like PCCS, like fuel transfer, fuel rack. That was a report which was addressed.
Okay.
Included the site-specific version.
Okay. So is this question response to this question satisfactory to staff?
It's okay with me.
Now, that's just for question B, not A, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. I thought we had the resolution on.
Yeah, I did. I was just making sure that since they were somewhat related. So. Okay, Gina. Your response to question C.
Okay, so question C. The quick response is, I think we need to make some changes to clarify that which sections of 3G apply to the different structures that were evaluated. So do you want me to go into more detail on this? Or
I don't think so. If we do include it, I mean, Joe, do you have any question on that?
Well, I don't think this is more involved than simply, I think, Dominion's indicated they're going to go back and certainly if any sections in 3.8 in DCD refer to 3G, then certainly you need to include the same kind of statement that we talked about. This is kind of related to item A, right?
Yeah, this is kind of item. So I don't think, if Dominion is doing it, then it should be okay.
Yeah, so this is, I think, addressed by item A, because you're now agreeing to insert that statement to tie in all sections in 3.8.1 through 5 to 3G. So this issue goes away. Yeah.
all right. So that leads us to the comment D, question D, and I think it's good that, it's interesting when we're so close to the work, sometimes it's hard to take a step back and think about how an independent reader might interpret what's being said in any kind of a particular statement or paragraph, and so I think this was a good comment that you all were asking here, and we do want to, as you've seen, I hope, before this meeting, want to clarify what our intent was here and that we are working to meet the acceptance criteria that should be applied to each of these members, structures, etc. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Gary Ellert from GEH. He's going to walk us through the slides. Okay, Gary?
All right, thank you. Gina, looking at slide 6, well, actually, it's first off the question was basically, is the NRC staff asked about the, whether, excuse me, do you have, hey, I'm sorry, there's someone, if you're not, discussing, somebody's dialing is coming through. I don't think that's ours, I don't know who that is.
I'm just checking mine.
Like somebody put their phone on hold and now it's calling them or something.
Well, whoever has a phone, I thought it was over. That's not us. It shouldn't be us. Maybe us. Hopefully it'll end soon. Hello.
So just put it on and then...
Everyone check their phone and make sure that you're not dialing. I don't know if
Would it help if everybody puts their phone on mute except the person speaking?
You would, as long as the person dialing is the key one. I don't know if calling in is going to help. But that dial still, I don't think it'll break it though.
It'll break the line with him.
I guess if everyone else hung up, then yeah, it would, wouldn't it? Mike and NRC, why don't we all disconnect?